Um, yeah, I'm not entirely clear, so I don't want to opine and give incorrect information. But I was basically, they have to have a reasonable reason to arrest you. There needs to be a good reason. And the reason that they claimed that they were arresting me was because they needed to seize my electronic devices.
Censorship is typically understood to be a bad thing. It allows the dominant ideology, otherwise known as whoever is in the position to enact and enforce laws, to control information. It promotes ignorance, prevents enlightenment and growth, and stymies critical thinkers. There is a reason why Mormons don't want those within their church to read criticisms of their religion. It is because they are aware that the information herein could lead to questioning church authority and lead to individuals leaving the group. There is a reason why the Chinese government blocks information coming in and out of the country. It is easy to ignore the genocide of the Uyghur Muslims if there's few images, videos, or news articles illustrating that it is happening. The Netflix docuseries How to Become a Tyrant has an entire episode dedicated to the premise, titled Control the Truth. In it, Stalin was able to consolidate power through censorship, controlling the media via selective reporting and required spin, and covered up many heinous crimes. One of the most notable examples was conducted by Walter Duranty, a Pulitzer Prize-winning New York Times correspondent who denied reporting by another Western journalist that Stalin's collectivization of Ukrainian farmland led to a famine thought to have killed between 3 and 4 million people. Conditions are bad, but there is no famine, Duranty wrote in one 1933 dispatch. Many countries look down upon free speech and regularly control what information their constituents are able to get out of the country, as well as what they are able to access. In cases like Iran, this allows the government to act with total immunity from judgment by other countries and governing bodies. I reckon that many governments that would otherwise be pressured into taking a stance are glad for the excuse not to intervene. The West often prides itself on having free information and few restrictions on free speech. However, the illusion that the news is reported without bias is quickly disappearing. Many large news companies have been bought by corporations which cannot enforce spin to create news that paints them in a better light. The types of stories reported on as news are, in turn, selected to create specific narratives and to keep public attention on certain topics. For example, who was talking about the Titan submarine versus the boat of migrants who drowned. In the United States, the First Amendment states that citizens have the right to free speech. There are limitations, of course. The example used most often in elementary school is that you can't shout fire when there isn't one, but there are actually multiple limitations. Speech that includes obscenity, defamation, libel, slander, fighting words, and inciting violence are not protected by the First Amendment. The U.S. has often upheld censorship by claiming that certain books or writings are one of these exceptions. For example, the Comstock Act of 1873 made it illegal to send obscene, lewd, or lascivious, immoral, or indecent publications through the mail. The law also made it a misdemeanor for anyone to sell, give away, or possess an obscene book, pamphlet, picture, drawing, or advertisement. This defined contraception as lewd and explicit, making it illegal to disseminate information about birth control or to sell across state lines or through the post, which, at the time, was namely condoms. This can later be seen in an anti-communist sentiment during the Red Scare, where laws like the Smith Act of 1940 made it a criminal offense for anyone to knowingly or willfully advocate, abet, advise, or teach the desirability or propriety of overthrowing the government of the United States or of any state by force or violence, or for anyone to organize any association which teaches, advises, or encourages such an overthrow, or for anyone to become a member of it, or to affiliate with any such association. The U.S., however, wasn't the only country to use censorship regarding what was deemed explicit materials. Les Fleurs du Mal led to both the author and publisher being prosecuted for material deemed obscene and against public morals when it was published in France. In some cases, materials are unavailable in a country because they are created by causing harm to other individuals. For example, you cannot access sexual materials made of children because it involves the harm of those depicted and has been linked to committing similar crimes. In Germany, websites denying that the Holocaust occurred are blocked or shut down. This is because those beliefs are directly tied to the harm of an ethnic/religious group. Mere exposure to anti-Semitism is not dangerous on its own, but being in a social group which prizes deviant behavior and which seeks to enact those ideas in the real world is. It's why when a person is steadfast in their beliefs, they are able to read books or discuss with others viewpoints that they disagree with without suddenly changing opinion. It is for this reason that we can read Lolita and not agree with Humbert Humbert. You can read Mein Kampf and disagree with everything inside the book. Even books which discuss topics which delve into the dark and disturbing have value, if only to allow you to better understand the perspective of your opponents and to better address their points. After all, the only way to truly defeat your enemy is to know him, and often, if you are accurate in your stance, you'll be able to point out the fallacies, illogicalities, and lies that your enemy relies on. However, the push to censor not only books but just dissenting voices has once again become a popular choice in maintaining ideological purity in the West, illustrating a desire to place feelings over maintaining free speech. This is particularly evident when it comes to modern liberal politics, particularly those involving gender.
Which is quite scary because,
yes.
I've been the victim of some really quite severe harassment. A few years ago, there was a website producing death threats, rape threats, threatening my children even. And the police said, we never seize electronic equipment. It has to be terrorism. So, there they are seizing my devices. And they said they had to arrest me in order to seize my devices. Well, okay, if they had to seize my devices, they know I have children. Why don't they issue a warrant, a search warrant, come round and get my devices in the day and invite me in for interview instead of depriving me of my liberty in such an unnecessary and undignified way and in front of my children?
Interacting with opponents' gender ideology is harshly punished and discouraged, to the extent that it's become normalized to be alerted if you interact with a so-called TERF. If you do not plead for forgiveness and recite the sacred mantras, even association through a piece of media or post unrelated to transgender topics is enough to get you red-listed in Shinigami Eyes, a database used to determine if someone is transphobic. Not only is it insane to suggest that one needs to determine the views of everyone they interact with online to deem them safe before simply reblogging or retweeting, but it encourages an environment of suspicion, similar to that of McCarthyism during the Red Scare. This way of thinking actively seeks to prevent outsiders from hearing the perspective of those they disagree with. It's easier to keep an in-group stable if their enemy can change to fit the narrative needed to keep everyone agreeing. It allows for so-called TERFs to be painted as monsters instead of people with differing opinions, which makes it easier to dehumanize and act violently against them. One particular example of the censorship leaving the internet can be seen in Caroline Farrow, a conservative woman who questions transgender ideology and has faced legal action twice for what can be summarized as being unkind on Twitter. It is important to note that she is a pro-choice activist, a Christian, and a conservative, but she is not a radical feminist and does not question the concept of gender, but rather transgenderism. Nevertheless, she was censored and punished for acknowledging biological sex, which is a factual matter, not a matter of opinion. This treatment by the law implies that discussing biological sex is comparable to hate speech, despite the fact that radical feminists or gender-questioning activists have not committed any crimes against transgender individuals. It is also important to recognize that radical feminists and critics of gender ideology often receive hate messages, threats, and actual violence. Until recently, the existence of biological sex was widely accepted, and the response to emotional distress caused by acknowledging this fact being equated to a hate crime is a relatively recent development. And yet, we can already see one of these groups being treated differently than the other. It appears that we are heading towards a situation where disagreement is equated with a hate crime, and where differing opinions are treated as strictly right or wrong, to the point that simply being unkind can result in being treated as a serious criminal. I do not have to share Caroline Farrow's political views to be offended and concerned about the way that she's been treated. This situation sets a dangerous precedent, one that I believe will have disastrous consequences for any minority movement that disagrees with those in power or merely hurts their feelings. This type of censorship is dangerous as not only does the movement it protects rely on lies, a mode of thinking, and misinformation, but it promotes violence against those who criticize it, and often holds the support of major legislative bodies. In short, this is censorship for the sake of controlling a narrative. For all that the trans community claims to be afraid of genocide and marginalization, they're the ones silencing and punishing their dissenters, not us. This, dear viewers, is where we part. It's 1:39 on July 10th, so for me, this is going out like 2 hours before it gets uploaded because I was busy rescuing kittens today. My friend started rescuing and fostering kittens on the street here, and I spent the day making videos for her TikTok. So I can't say I regret the decision, but now it's 1:39 and here I am recording this. Anyhow, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, let me know. I'm aware this one's a bit rushed, but censorship has been on my mind ever since I read Caroline Farrow's tweets, because even though she is conservative, she is not the same as me. I don't think you should be arrested for saying stuff that I disagree with, or anyone disagrees with. Like, you shouldn't be arrested for being mean to someone online, especially when what they consider to be mean is literally just like name calling versus like the literal harassment that she's received over the past 4 years. Not at all the same thing, and it's being treated as if she's a criminal for saying that man is a man, which is insane to me that they'll go ahead and arrest you for that, but not for someone harassing and threatening your children. But I guess I really, really shouldn't be surprised. But yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.